Hey everybody, welcome to the Daniel Davis Deep Dive Roadshow edition. This time coming from Houston, Texas. I'm actually in the airport heading back to Washington, D.C., but in the process of getting ready for the plane and kind of getting back into the flow of things and going through the news and stuff just before I got on the plane, I saw something I just could not wait until we got back. And by the way, this is on Saturday at the Finnish Institute for International Affairs.
You have just come back from a trip to Kyiv, Paris, Brussels, and Warsaw. How is the war effort going from your check-in?
Well, actually, we were also in Kyiv a few months ago for I think that was the Kyiv Security Forum. This was the Yalta-European Strategy Group, but also visiting with units that I've been tracking all along, including especially the Nemesis regiment, which is one of the premier unmanned services units. In fact, I drove their maritime drone 100 kilometers an hour. It's quite spectacular. And I actually felt better after this trip to Kyiv for some reason. The Ukrainians, I think, are in a better place relative to the U.S. and to NATO and the Western world.
Relatively better place. We're gonna continue on with that. How can you say that they're in? I feel better about stuff. Look, let me just show you some things we've been talking about here lately. This is from just a couple of days ago, where Zelensky says, "Look, I've got to find $120 billion, or we're not going to be able to keep this thing going." He said, "I need to find another $60 billion, and if not, Plan A is end the war this year. Plan B is get another $120 billion, and this is on top of weapon stuff, folks. This is what he needs just to function his state and his. So he's saying this is how serious we are. We don't have $120 billion that we need just to even continue functioning into the future, on top of all the weapons and ammunition and manpower that they need. Meanwhile, we also have Russia has 9 times the number of long-range attack drones and decoys than they had in the previous year. So year over year, 9 times more. This is Institute for the Study of War. Now, as I always say, they're really great on the maps and really bad on a lot of the analysis, but some of their information and factual is right. Now, would you know that this group here is very, very much pro-Ukrainian? You have to look down here, top line. Again, this is from today's news. Russia has reportedly been forming a strategic reserve from new recruits since July 2025. A Russian insider source that has constantly provided accurate reports about changes in the Russian military command stated on September 21st that roughly 292,000 people signed contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense between the start of 2025 and September 15th, an average of 7,900 per week or 31,600 per month. What we've been telling you is the Russian side is prioritizing firepower against the Ukrainian military and to preserve their own manpower. And so now this is allowing them, whatever losses they're actually succumbing to, they have more people coming in than they have going out, even according to the ISW, which historically exaggerates greatly the Russian losses. Now, they are acknowledging that the Russia is gaining more than losing, because now they can form a strategic reserve of nearly 300,000. Upon what basis can any rational retired 4-star general and spy master, as he's about to call himself, say he feels better about things?
I very much agree with what the ambassador just said in many, many respects, with one exception, and that is that I think that the EU and NATO have done more and more credible actions than I think he was giving credit for. Again, you noted, I was in Brussels. I met with the chairman of the NATO Military Committee, met with a number of EU officials in President von der Leyen's office, and then in the office of the foreign minister, if you will, and so forth. But my conclusion for this group, keep in mind I'm a former soldier and spy master, not a former diplomat, so this will be somewhat blunt.
Okay, so just to point it here, there he is. He's kind of bragging on himself. I'm a spy master, but I'm a former CIA. I'm a soldier, so this is going to be blunt, so you can believe me. Now, of course, I've told you many times, and we did a whole show on him specifically not long ago, where I showed you how catastrophically wrong he was on the most important issues in this war. And now that he's telling everybody, I'm telling you from a spy master situation, and all of my years as a military guy, I'm going to give you the blunt stuff. I'm going to give you the down and dirty. Only you can almost say most likely whatever you're about to say is badly flawed and wrong.
President Trump rightly tried to use his personal relationship with President Putin to bring the killing to an end. He literally rolled out the red carpet, had the big meeting in Anchorage, and Putin has answered by sending the most drones and missiles into Ukraine skies.
So he said that, look, he tries to give Trump some credit. At least he tried, right? He talked to him. He tried to use personal diplomacy, but then the answer was the most drones forever. Listen, this is one of the most insidious deceptions that Petraeus and the landed in aristocracy elite, if you want to call it that, the foreign policy elite in the West, are inflicting upon people, implying that, look, that they're trying to, Trump is trying in good faith. The West is trying in good faith, but the darn Russians, they just won't listen to reason. No, it's the opposite. We won't listen to reason. And we don't even listen to what they say at face value, which is matched by their actions on the ground. Because all of those things I just showed you are overwhelmingly in Russian favor and are getting worse in Ukraine's disadvantage, they don't have to give you anything. Putin has been very clear on telling Trump that. Every time they have a meeting, the foreign ministry has a readout, and then they have comments in the public. They say, we told them this. We told them we are not going to have a negotiated settlement on terms different than these right here. If we get them, great, then we'll end the war there. And if we don't, we will accomplish them on the battlefield. Black and white, they say that, and they never change their point.
By penetrating Poland's airspace with 19 drones, and I had a great chat with Radek Sikorski, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and other officials there, by violating most recently Estonia's airspace and also Romania's airspace and so forth. And what I think this tells us, when you also take into account his reiteration and Medvedev's constant reiteration of the maximalist demands that Putin wants to achieve. This is not about something that you could split the difference or anything. He wants to replace President Zelensky with a pro-Russian figure. He wants to be given more territory than Russia has actually been able to seize, despite the extraordinary, way over 1 million killed and wounded.
All right, just a point here. So far, he's right. Russia is saying that. They are saying they want territory they haven't seized yet. And they do want, they call it denazification.
He wants to be given the fortified cities of Donetsk, which, again, they can't even get to, much less get through. And they want to demilitarize Ukraine. None of those three can be acceptable to Ukraine, obviously, nor should they be acceptable to us.
And that in there is your key issue here, Sid. Yep, that's not acceptable to them, and it's not acceptable to us. So he's taken his preference. We don't want to give Russia what they're asking for, which is what they've been asking for going back to Istanbul in 2022, going back to a statement by President Putin in June of 2024. And what is on the table right now? What President Putin said just a couple of weeks ago in Beijing, he reiterated one more time, openly and clearly, and said, listen, you're going to either give us what we want at the negotiating table, or we're going to take it on the battlefield. And so here's Petraeus saying, even though all the information is stacked up, all the fundamentals are stacked up against our side, and even though the manpower is dwindling on the Ukraine side, he's still saying, we just don't want this outcome. So here is the net. David Petraeus is leading the Western Alliance, and they're using him as a mouthpiece. Basically, we don't care what the reality is. We want a different reality. As of today, on what is today, 22nd of September, 2025. Congratulations. Well done. Good job on the Ukraine side, latching yourself to this. I used to say that we're latching ourselves onto the sinking Titanic. Now I'm almost wondering if it's the opposite, that it's the West sinking and these poor Ukrainian people have latched themselves to a ship that's going down of its own accord. This is even worse than the Titanic. At least they got the lifeboats off and they tried to get off the ship and save as many people as they could before the ship went down. Hell, these people are like using the life rafts for chopping them up for firewood to make the fires burn brighter or something, cook more food or something like that as the ship goes down and everybody down with it. It's unbelievable, unimaginable. See, obviously I'm kind of irked about this, which is why I said, I need to get this done before I get on the plane here. So again, sorry for some of the background noise and whatnot, but I wanted to give you the best I could while I was still here, and we'll get you back next time on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.